I'm going to look backwards a little bit and forwards a little bit in terms of the state of pro bono. I don't have to tell anyone here that 2009 in so many ways was a very, very difficult year. The impact of the downturn, the economic downturn on firms and legal departments was devastating. Bob is absolutely right. In absolute terms, 2009 was, for law firms, the worst financial year ever. And that's, that says a lot since recorded history. The contraction in client demand and the absolute reduction in size of firms was dramatic. More than 17,000 lawyers and legal staff in large firms lost their jobs during this downturn. And what we're seeing in response to that is a new world order with fundamental, necessary, but disruptive and unsettling changes in most of the established law firm policies, practices, and procedures. Jeff Immelt of GE has been quoted in saying about the economic downturn that it is not a cycle, it is a reset. And I think for most of us, we're seeing that. We are in a new and different place, and everything around us is changing very rapidly, and changing, I think, in a way that will not let us return, even if we wanted to the old ways. There are signs of economic recovery, but for many people, that recovery feels weak, halting, uneven, and unreliable. And frankly, as we'll talk about in this seminar, the fact of a recovery at a time when firms and legal departments are still very concerned about cost and headcount presents its own issues for pro bono. And most of all, the future is uncertain. Even those who are confident enough, some would say arrogant enough, to try to look into their crystal balls are very reluctant to predict what we're going to be seeing a year or 2 years or 5 years from now. And as a profession, I think lawyers shy away from uncertainty. We like to look to the past in precedent. We like to stay in our comfortable routines. So for us, even more than other groups, I think this level of uncertainty is static and disruptive for us. For our public interest friends who are here with us today, the law firm world and the corporate world look, of course, very rosy. This has been, without a doubt, the most difficult time for them in decades of nothing but difficult times. Already severely under-resourced, they are finding more cuts in funding, more closed offices, less staff, and a desperate and growing need for legal assistance, with no indication, frankly, of any relief in the near future, given the state of the federal budget, state budgets, and interest rates that impact IOLTA funding. And of course, it is the clients, low-income people, nonprofit groups, public interest organizations that address civil rights and women's rights and other areas that have been the hardest hit of all. The number of those in poverty in this nation continues to grow at an astonishing rate. We've seen, all of us, a rash of foreclosures around the country with no really effective resolution for people who are facing homelessness. And the experts tell us that we are about to hit foreclosure part 2, and that another 7 to 9 million households, 25 to 30 million people, face the possibility of foreclosure in 2010. State and budgetary deficits have resulted in budget cuts that disproportionately impact the poor and disadvantaged. Their health, shelter, assistance to people with HIV, the quality of public education are all at risk, fundamental risk, in a way that we haven't seen before in our lifetimes. And what all of that has done in a country that believes and is based, I think, in to a great extent in the belief that our children's lives will be better than our own, into a kind of a sadness and a lack of hope that really is disturbing and depressing. And unfortunately, while some of this was true last year, what we're now seeing is an even broader impact of the economic downturn and the shifts, the tectonic shifts in our economy and in the way our country works. One of the most profound areas, and one that we'll address in a session this afternoon, is what's happening to our court systems. We talk about lawyers as being essential to access to justice, and that is certainly true, but even more fundamental are the courts. And in many states in this country, several days each month, the courthouse doors are shut. They're closed because of lack of funding. The budget shortfalls have resulted in furloughs, staff cuts, delays in even emergency matters, and as I said, closed courthouses throughout this country. Now that is an access to justice issue that is even more profound than the lack of enough lawyers.